9 days. That's all Ethan Voss had left before the bank ripped his family's ranch from under him. 40 years of legacy, gone. But when a mysterious woman showed up claiming partnership rights he never agreed to, everything exploded. Was she his last chance at survival? Or the final nail in his coffin? This is a story about broken trust, impossible choices, and two strangers fighting against a winter that wanted them dead. Stay until the end, hit that like button, and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. You won't believe how this ends. The nail went through the paper with enough force to splinter the wood beneath it. Ethan Voss stood on his porch at dawn, staring at the foreclosure notice like it might disappear if he looked hard enough. It didn't. Notice of foreclosure proceedings. Property: 2,847 acres. Voss Ranch amount due: $347,822.16. Final payment. Deadline: December 24th. Days remaining: 9. 9 days until Christmas. 9 days until everything his father built, his grandfather protected, and his mother died trying to save would belong to First National Bank. Or more accurately, to Clint Hargrove, who'd been hovering around the property like a turkey vulture for the past 6 months. Ethan pulled the notice down, crumpling it in his fist. The paper was expensive, thick, official, designed to make you feel small. He shoved it into his coat pocket and looked out across what used to be Voss Ranch. Used to be. That's what killed him. The past tense. The land stretched out in frozen waves, brown grass poking through patches of December snow like the stubble on a dead man's face. The cattle, what few remained, huddled near the barn, ribs showing through their winter coats. 40 head left out of 200. He'd sold the rest for half what they were worth just to make the October payment. Then November came, and the money was gone, and December arrived with its hand out. The fence line sagged in 3 places he could see from here. The barn roof had a tarp over the section that caved in during the October storm. The truck wouldn't start half the time. The tractor's transmission was shot. And the house, his parents' house, where he'd grown up, where he'd promised his mother he'd keep things going. The house had a crack running through the foundation that got a little wider every year. 40 years. That's how long the Voss family had owned this land. His grandfather bought it in 1985 with money he'd saved from 2 decades of construction work. Built the original barn himself. His father expanded it, added the cattle operation, planted the windbreak trees that now stood like a row of frozen soldiers along the north property line. His mother kept the books, managed the breeding program, turned it into something that actually made money. Then she got sick. Cancer, fast and mean. The medical bills came first, then the funeral costs, then the gap where her management skills used to be, and Ethan, 26 years old, still figuring out how to run a ranch, drowning in debt he didn't know how to swim out of. That was 3 years ago. He'd been drowning ever since. Boss? Ethan turned. Miguel stood in the barn doorway, hat in his hands. Miguel Reyes, 62 years old, been with the ranch since Ethan was in high school, the only employee left. The only one Ethan couldn't afford to pay anymore, but who stayed anyway because, well, Ethan didn't know why. Loyalty, maybe, or stupidity. Hard to tell the difference sometimes. Yeah. The hay's getting low. We got maybe 4 days left if we stretch it. I know. The feed store won't extend more credit. I know that too. Miguel nodded slowly, turning his hat in his hands. He was a short man, weathered and solid, with hands that had roped 10,000 cattle and a back that remembered every one. You want me to make some calls? See if anyone's hiring for winter work? No. Ethan's voice came out harder than he meant. No, I'll figure something out. Ethan, I said I'll figure it out. Miguel looked at him for a long moment, the kind of look that said, "You're lying, and we both know it." But he just nodded, put his hat back on, and walked toward the cattle. Ethan watched him go, guilt sitting in his stomach like a rock. The truth was simple and terrible. There was nothing to figure out. The math didn't work. He'd tried everything, sold every cow he could spare, let go of all the seasonal workers, stopped taking a salary himself, cut every expense down to bone. He'd even gone to his uncle in Billings with his hat in his hand, asking for a loan. His uncle had laughed. Actually laughed. Your daddy couldn't make that place work with twice the herd and half the debt, his uncle had said. What makes you think you can? Ethan had left without answering because he didn't have an answer. He walked down the porch steps, boots crunching on frozen ground. The morning was clear and brutally cold, the kind of cold that made your lungs hurt when you breathed too deep. 15 degrees, maybe. The sky was that hard blue you only get in winter, cloudless and unforgiving. The truck sat in the driveway, a 2001 Ford F250, with rust eating through the wheel wells and a passenger door that didn't open from the inside. Ethan climbed in, turned the key. The engine coughed, protested, finally caught. He sat there letting it warm up, watching his breath fog the windshield. The gun was still in the glove box. He'd put it there 2 weeks ago after standing in the north pasture at midnight, holding it, thinking about how much easier everything would be if he hadn't. Obviously. But the thought came back sometimes, usually around 3 in the morning when he couldn't sleep, when the weight of everything pressed down so hard he couldn't breathe. His phone buzzed. He pulled it out, saw the caller ID, Hargrove Development, LLC. Ethan stared at it, let it ring 4 times before answering. Yeah. Ethan, Clint Hargrove. How you doing this fine morning? Hargrove's voice was smooth as oil, friendly as a snake. He was a developer from Denver, made his money buying up failing ranches and subdividing them into luxury ranchettes for rich people who wanted to play cowboy on the weekends. He'd been sniffing around Voss Ranch since the foreclosure became public knowledge 3 months ago. What do you want, Clint? Just checking in, seeing how you're holding up. I know these last few months have been tough. I'm fine. Really? Because my sources at First National tell me you're 9 days out from losing everything. That doesn't sound fine to me. Ethan's jaw tightened. Your sources need to mind their own business. Hey, I'm not judging. The ranch business is brutal, always has been. Your daddy knew that. Your granddaddy knew it. Now you're learning it too. Hargrove paused. But it doesn't have to end badly. My offer still stands. $300,000 for the whole property. Cash. Close before Christmas. You walk away with enough to start over somewhere else. The land's worth twice that. The land's worth what someone will pay for it. And right now, I'm the only someone at the table. Hargrove's voice hardened slightly. Look, I'm trying to help you here. 9 days from now, the bank takes it anyway, and you get nothing. Zero. At least with my offer, you walk away with something. I'm not interested. Ethan. I said no. He ended the call, threw the phone onto the passenger seat. $300,000. For land his grandfather paid $40,000 for. For buildings his father built with his own hands. For a legacy that was supposed to mean something. The phone buzzed again immediately. Ethan ignored it. Hargrove could call all he wanted. Ethan would burn the place down before he sold it to that vulture for pennies on the dollar. He put the truck in gear, headed down the long driveway toward the main road. He needed to pick up supplies in town. The stuff he couldn't put on credit anymore. The stuff he had to pay cash for with money he didn't have. Maybe the feed store would take pity on him. Maybe the hardware store would extend him 30 more days. Maybe someone would offer him a miracle. Maybe he'd wake up and find out the last 3 years were just a bad dream. The highway into Shepherd's Bend was empty, 20 miles of straight road through frozen ranch land. Other spreads lined the route, some doing well, some struggling like his. He passed the Morrison place, 8,000 acres, 3 generations, still going strong. Past the Chen family's organic operation, their hand-painted sign advertising grass-fed beef and free-range eggs. Past the old Hutchinson Ranch, abandoned now, the house collapsing in on itself like a forgotten dream. That's what Voss Ranch would look like in 10 years if Hargrove got it. Bulldozed, subdivided, turned into Voss Ranch estates with million-dollar houses and HOA regulations about fence colors. Shepherd's Bend appeared on the horizon, a cluster of buildings along the highway that called itself a town. Population 1,847. 1 grocery store, 1 hardware store, 1 feed store, 2 bars, 3 churches, and a gas station that charged 20 cents more per gallon than the place in Laurel 30 miles south. Ethan parked in front of the feed store, steeling himself. The owner, Chuck Redding, was a decent guy, but business was business. Ethan owed him $4,000 already. Inside, the store smelled like grain and leather and the wood stove burning in the corner. Chuck looked up from the counter, and Ethan saw it immediately. The sympathy in his eyes, the way people look at you when they know you're drowning. Ethan. Chuck. Ethan approached the counter. I need 2 tons of hay. The coastal if you've got it. Chuck shifted his weight, uncomfortable. Ethan, you know I want to help. I can pay half now, half in 2 weeks. You said that last month. I know, and I'm good for it. You know I am. Chuck sighed, looked at the computer screen like it might have different numbers than it did a minute ago. Ethan, your account's already 4 months past due. My distributor's crawling up my ass about it. I can't keep extending credit to people who can't pay. 2 weeks. That's all I'm asking. You won't have the ranch in 2 weeks. The words hung in the air like a slap. Chuck looked immediately sorry he'd said it, but it was too late. The truth was out. Everyone knows? Ethan asked quietly. It's a small town. Ethan nodded. Of course everyone knew. The bank filed the foreclosure publicly. Hargrove had probably told half the county himself, softening up potential buyers. By now, everyone from here to Billings knew that Ethan Voss was about to lose his family's ranch. I'll figure it out, Ethan said. Ethan, just forget it. He turned to leave. Wait. Chuck came around the counter. Look, I can't do credit, but I've got some hay that got rained on last month, molded up a bit. I was going to trash it, but if you want it, take it. No charge. Pride wanted Ethan to refuse. Pride wanted him to walk out with his head high, go somewhere else, pay full price for good hay. But pride didn't feed cattle. Yeah, okay, thanks. Chuck nodded, relieved. I'll have the boys loaded up. Ethan walked back outside, the cold air hitting him like a wall. Charity hay. That's what it had come to. Moldy hay that wasn't good enough to sell. He was pulling out his phone to call Miguel when the car pulled up. It was a Honda Civic, maybe 10 years old, dented and dirty from highway miles. Montana plates, but not local. A rental maybe, or someone passing through. It parked 2 spaces down from his truck. The engine shut off. The door opened. A woman got out. She was maybe 30, 35. Hard to tell. Dark hair pulled back in a messy bun, canvas jacket that had seen better days. Jeans, work boots, a backpack slung over one shoulder. She looked tired, the kind of tired that goes deeper than missing sleep, the kind that sits in your bones. She looked at the feed store, then at Ethan. Her eyes were gray or maybe blue, sharp despite the exhaustion. Excuse me, she said. Is there a motel in town? Back about 5 miles, the Route 90 Inn. That the only one? Yeah. She nodded, looked like she might say something else, then just got back in her car. Ethan watched her drive away, then climbed into his truck. The moldy hay would be loaded within the hour. He'd take it back to the ranch, feed it to cattle that deserved better, and count down the 9 days he had left until everything ended. The hay was worse than Ethan expected, green with mold in places, the whole load smelling like rot and failure. Miguel took one look at it and shook his head. We can't feed this to them. We don't have a choice. It'll make them sick. Then they'll be sick. Ethan grabbed a bale, hauled it toward the feeding area. Better than starving. They worked in silence, breaking up the bales, spreading the questionable hay along the feed line. The cattle approached cautiously, sniffing it, some of them eating despite the mold. Ethan felt something twist in his chest watching them. These animals trusted him, depended on him, and he was feeding them garbage because he'd failed. I talked to my cousin in Livingston, Miguel said after a while. He's got a dairy operation, said he could use help through calving season. Good for him. I'm just saying, if things don't work out here, they won't work out. Let's not pretend otherwise. Ethan threw down another flake of hay harder than necessary. 9 days and the bank owns it. That's reality. Miguel was quiet for a moment. What are you going to do? I don't know. Hargrove's offering? I know what Hargrove's offering, and I'd rather burn it down than give it to him. That's stupid. Probably. Ethan wiped sweat from his forehead despite the cold. But it's my stupid to be. They finished feeding in silence. The sun was high now, weak winter light making everything look washed out and pale. Ethan was heading back to the house when he saw it. The Honda Civic coming up his driveway. He stopped, watched it approach. The car parked near the house. The same woman got out, pulled her backpack from the back seat. She walked toward him like she belonged there. "Can I help you?" Ethan called. She stopped a few yards away, and he got a better look at her now. Younger than he'd thought, maybe late 20s. There was a scar on her left cheek, faded but visible. Her hands looked rough, calloused. Not a tourist. "You're Ethan Voss?" she asked. "Yeah, who are you?" "Lena Ward." She said it like the name should mean something. When Ethan didn't react, she added, "Your partner." Ethan stared at her. "My what?" "Your partner. I got your letter 3 weeks ago. Took me a while to settle things and drive out here, but I'm ready to start." "I don't know what you're talking about." Lena's expression shifted slightly. Confusion, then concern. She dug into her backpack, pulled out a folded piece of paper. "This. The letter you sent." Ethan took it. It was on ranch letterhead, his letterhead, the fancy stuff his mother had ordered before she got sick. His signature was at the bottom. The letter laid out a partnership agreement, room, board, and 30% equity in exchange for labor and expertise in ranch restoration and sustainable operations. "I didn't write this," Ethan said. "Your signature's right there." "Yeah, I see it, but I didn't write it. He read it again, his confusion growing into something darker. The signature looked real, not perfect, but close enough that someone who didn't know his handwriting well might be fooled. "So what? This is a scam?" Lena's voice went hard. "Someone pretending to be you?" "I guess so." Ethan handed the letter back. "I'm sorry you drove all the way out here, but there's no partnership. There's barely a ranch." Lena didn't take the letter. She stood there, looking at him, then at the buildings, then back at him. "I sold everything, my truck, my tools, my apartment. Drove 23 hours to get here. You're telling me this is fake?" "I'm telling you I didn't write it." "Then who did?" "I don't know." But even as he said it, something itched at the back of his mind. The letterhead, the signature, the timing. Is there anyone else who could have sent it? A partner? A family member? "No, there's no one." Ethan's phone buzzed in his pocket. He ignored it. Lena stood there, her jaw tight, that exhaustion in her eyes deepening into something that looked like despair. "I have $400 left. That's it. I gave up my lease, quit my job, drove halfway across the country because—" She stopped, took a breath. "I needed this to work." "I understand, but—" "No, you don't understand." Her voice cracked slightly. "I really needed this." They stood in uncomfortable silence. Ethan's phone buzzed again. He pulled it out, ready to throw it in the nearest snowbank, when he saw who was calling. Not Hargrove. His lawyer. He answered. "Yeah?" "Ethan, it's Mark Coughlin. We need to talk." "Kind of busy right now." "This can't wait. I'm looking at documents that just came across my desk." "Did you enter into a partnership agreement with someone named Lena Ward?" Ethan felt his stomach drop. "What?" 3 weeks ago, filed with the county clerk. It's a binding agreement giving her 30% equity in Voss Ranch in exchange for— "I didn't sign anything." "Well, someone did, and it's legal, and it's a problem." "How is it a problem?" "Because partnerships have to be dissolved according to specific legal procedures. You can't just foreclose on a property with an active partnership dispute. The bank's lawyers are already calling me. This throws everything into chaos." Ethan looked at Lena. She was watching him, arms crossed, waiting. "Hold on." He lowered the phone. "You filed partnership papers?" "The letter said to file them with the county clerk within 10 days, so I did." Lena's voice was steady now, defensive. "I followed the instructions exactly." Ethan put the phone back to his ear. "Mark, I need to call you back." "This is serious." "I know. I'll call you back." He ended the call. Lena hadn't moved. "What's going on?" Ethan's mind was racing, trying to fit the pieces together. Someone forged a partnership letter. Lena filed the papers. The foreclosure got complicated. The timing was too perfect to be coincidence. "How much do you know about ranching?" he asked. "Enough to know you're about to lose this one." She nodded toward the cattle. "Those animals are half-starved. Your infrastructure's falling apart, and you're feeding them moldy hay." That didn't answer my question. I grew up on a ranch, worked on 4 others before I left the business. I know what I'm looking at. Which is? A man in over his head. She said it without cruelty, just observation. How much do you owe? Why would I tell you that? Because according to those papers I filed, I own 30% of this place. That means I own 30% of the debt too. She paused. So how much? Ethan hesitated, then figured, what did it matter? $347,000. Lena let out a breath. Jesus. Yeah. When's it due? 9 days. And you've got what? Maybe 40 head of cattle left? Some broken equipment? A house that needs work? She looked around. This place is dying. I know that. Anger flashed through him. You think I don't know that? I've watched it die for 3 years. I've bled it dry trying to save it and it's dying anyway. So yeah, I know. Lena was quiet for a moment, then, who would want to stop the foreclosure? The question caught him off guard. What? Someone sent that letter, filed those papers, complicated the foreclosure process. Who benefits from that? Ethan's mind went immediately to Hargrove, but Hargrove wanted the foreclosure to go through, unless… There's a developer, he said slowly. Clint Hargrove. He's been trying to buy the place cheap, but complicating the foreclosure doesn't help him. Unless he's not the only buyer. Lena's eyes sharpened. If there's someone else interested, someone with more money, Hargrove might need more time to secure financing. Delay the foreclosure, keep the property in limbo, give himself room to maneuver. That's pretty elaborate. Rich people play elaborate games. She shifted her backpack. So what now? What do you mean? I mean, I'm here. I filed papers that apparently make me part owner of your dying ranch, and I've got nowhere else to go. She looked at him directly. So what now? Ethan should have told her to leave, should have called his lawyer back, figured out how to unwind the partnership, gotten everything back on track for the foreclosure he couldn't stop anyway. Instead, he heard himself say, You got any ideas how to make $347,000 in 9 days? Lena almost smiled. Almost. No, but I've got nothing to lose trying. You sure about that? I sold everything I owned to come here. I'm sleeping in my car. I've got $400 in a backpack. She met his eyes. I've already lost everything. Might as well lose it fighting. Something in her voice made Ethan believe her. The exhaustion, the scar, the way she stood like someone who'd learned to take hits and keep standing. This wasn't someone looking for an easy answer. This was someone who'd already tried easy and found out it didn't work. You hungry? He asked. Starving. Come on. He started toward the house. I'll make some coffee. Then you can tell me what the hell we're supposed to do now. Inside, the house was cold. Ethan turned up the thermostat. It clicked, but nothing happened. The furnace had been acting up for weeks. He'd meant to call someone, then remembered he couldn't afford to call someone. He lit the wood stove instead, got it going while Lena stood near the door, looking around. The house was a mess. Dishes in the sink, mail piled on the table. His mother's things still exactly where she'd left them 3 years ago. He hadn't had the heart to move them. How long have you been alone here? Lena asked. 3 years, since my mom died. He filled the coffee pot, set it on the stove. My dad passed when I was 19. Mom kept the place running until the cancer got her. I'm sorry. Yeah. He didn't want to talk about it. So this letter, where'd it come from? Lena pulled it out again, handed it to him. He studied it more carefully this time. The letterhead was right. The signature looked right. Even the wording sounded like something he might say if he was desperate enough to bring in a partner, which he was, which made the whole thing more disturbing. 3 weeks ago, Lena said, showed up at my P.O. box in Casper. I'd been working at a ranch there, but the owner died and his kids sold the place. I was out of work, out of options, trying to figure out what came next. Then this arrived. And you didn't think it was suspicious? Of course I did. But I called the number on the letterhead, got your voicemail. I left 3 messages. You never called back. I don't check voicemail. I see that now. She accepted the coffee he poured, wrapped her hands around the mug. I researched the property, found out about the foreclosure.
about Hargrove circling. Figured maybe you were desperate enough to actually send it. I was desperate. Am desperate. But I didn't send it. So we're back to who did. The coffee was terrible. Old grounds, old pot, water that tasted like the pipes it came through. Ethan drank it anyway. You said you grew up on a ranch. Wyoming. My parents ran cattle up near Gillette. Small operation, couple hundred head. They lost it when I was 16. Bank took it, developer bought it, built a golf course. She said it matter-of-factly, like she'd made peace with it a long time ago. I worked on other places after that. Learned everything I could. Thought maybe I'd have my own place someday. What happened? Life. She took a sip of coffee, didn't complain about how bad it was. Bad partners, bad luck, bad decisions, the usual. They sat in silence for a while. Outside, Miguel was checking the fence line. The cattle were settled. The sun was starting to sink, casting long shadows across the frozen ground. You're really part owner now? Ethan asked. Legally? Apparently, unless you can prove fraud. Can I? Not without time and money you don't have. Lena set down her mug. Look, I don't want to take your ranch. That's not why I'm here. I came because I thought maybe we could help each other, build something together. I know that sounds naive considering the circumstances, but it doesn't sound naive. It sounds desperate. He looked at her. Which I understand. So? So I don't know what to do with you. Ethan stood up, paced to the window. I've got 9 days to come up with $300,000. Even if I sold every cow, every piece of equipment, the house, all of it, I wouldn't come close. The land's worth the money, but land takes months to sell. I don't have months. What about Hargrove's offer? 300,000, 40,000 short, and I'd rather die than sell to him. Lena was quiet, thinking. Then, what if there's another way? There's not. How do you know? Because I've looked. For 3 years I've looked at every angle, every option, every possible way to save this place. There's nothing left. You've been looking alone. She stood up, walked to the window beside him. Now you've got a partner. Unwanted, maybe. Unexpected, definitely. But a partner. Ethan wanted to argue, wanted to tell her to leave, to get in her car and drive back to wherever she came from, to let him fail in peace. But he was tired, so tired. And maybe, having someone else here, even a stranger, even someone who'd been forced on him through forgery and desperation, maybe that was better than being alone. You can stay in the guest room, he heard himself say, until we figure this out. Figure what out? Everything. He turned to face her. But I need you to know, this place is dying. We're probably going to lose it anyway. And when that happens, that 30% you own, it'll be worth exactly nothing. I've owned nothing before. Lena held out her hand. At least this time I'll have company. Ethan looked at her hand, rough, calloused, scarred across the knuckles. The hand of someone who'd worked hard and had nothing to show for it. He shook it. Welcome to Voss Ranch, he said. Try not to get too attached. The guest room smelled like dust and memories. Ethan opened the door, flipped the light switch. Nothing happened. He tried it again. Bulb's out, he said. I'll get one. Don't bother. Lena dropped her backpack on the bed. I've got a headlamp. The room was small, a double bed, a dresser, a window that looked out toward the barn. His mother used to keep it ready for visitors who never came. The quilt on the bed was one she'd made, blue and white squares stitched together during the winter before she got sick. Bathroom's down the hall, Ethan said. Water takes a minute to get hot. Sometimes it doesn't get hot at all. Got it. He stood in the doorway, awkward. Look, about the partnership thing. We don't have to talk about it tonight. I just want you to know I'm not trying to screw you over. Whatever happens, Ethan. She turned to face him. I've been screwed over before. By people who smiled while they did it. You're not smiling. I'll take my chances. He nodded, started to leave. Hey, she called. That moldy hay. How long have you been feeding it? Just started today. Don't give them any more. It'll kill them faster than starving will. I don't have anything else. Then we'll figure something out tomorrow. She pulled the headlamp from her pack, clicked it on. Get some sleep.
You look like you need it.
Ethan wanted to argue but couldn't find the energy. He went to his own room, lay down on the bed without undressing, stared at the ceiling. The house settled around him, old wood creaking in the cold. Somewhere in the walls, mice scratched. The furnace kicked on, rattled, died again. He thought about his mother, about the promise he'd made to her in the hospital, her hand so thin in his he was afraid to squeeze. "Keep it going," she'd said. "Your grandfather built this. Your father gave his life to it. Don't let it die." He'd promised. And he'd failed. Sleep came in pieces, broken by anxiety and the cold. He woke at 3, couldn't fall back asleep, finally got up at 4:30 and started coffee. The kitchen was freezing. He rebuilt the fire in the wood stove, stood close to it while the coffee percolated. Through the window, he could see the barn. A light was on inside. He pulled on his boots, grabbed his coat, walked out into the pre-dawn darkness. The temperature had dropped overnight, probably single digits now. His breath came out in thick clouds. Ice crunched under his boots. The barn door was cracked open. Inside, Lena stood near the cattle, a notebook in her hand, writing something down. She'd changed into heavier clothes, Carhartt overalls, a thick flannel, a wool cap pulled low. She looked up when he entered. "You're up early," he said. "Couldn't sleep. Thought I'd do an inventory." She gestured at the cattle. "You've got 42 head. 37 are severely underweight. 4 have respiratory issues. One's got hoof rot." She paused. "And that black baldy in the corner? She's pregnant." Ethan looked where she pointed. The black baldy was one of his best cows, or used to be. He hadn't realized she was bred. "How far along?" 6 months, maybe 7. Hard to tell with how thin she is. Lena wrote something else in her notebook. "When's the last time you had a vet out?" "October." "What'd they say?" "That I needed to feed them more, and I couldn't afford to feed them more." He leaned against a post. "I know they're in bad shape. I know what I should be doing. I just can't do it." Lena closed the notebook. "The pregnant one. What's her name?" "Bessie. Original, I know." "Bessie's your ace." She walked over to the cow, ran a hand along her side. The animal didn't move, too tired to care. "If we can keep her alive, get that calf born healthy, that's something to build on." "Build on for what? We've got 9 days. 8 now, and I don't know yet." She looked at him across the cow's back. "But giving up before we start seems stupid." Miguel arrived at 6, surprised to find them both in the barn. Ethan made introductions, watched Miguel's face carefully as he explained the partnership situation. The old man's expression didn't change much. He'd probably seen stranger things in 62 years. "So you're staying?" Miguel asked Lena. "Looks like it." "You know anything about cattle?" "Some." "Some." Miguel tested the word. "Well, some is better than nothing. You want coffee?" They walked back to the house together, the sky starting to lighten in the east. Over coffee that was just as bad as yesterday's, they laid out the reality. "We can't feed them the moldy hay," Lena said. "It'll make them sicker." "We can't afford good hay," Ethan countered. "Chuck already gave us charity hay. I can't ask for more." "What about other feed stores?" "I owe money to all of them." "Friends? Family?" "Tapped out, tired of asking." Lena was quiet, thinking. Then, "What if we don't buy hay?" "Cattle need hay." "I know that. But what if we find it another way?" She looked at Miguel. "Is there any public land around here? BLM, Forest Service?" "Sure. Up north about 15 miles. "Winter grazing allowed?" "Some areas, yeah, but you need permits and—" "How fast can we get permits?" Miguel shook his head. "This time of year?" "Weeks, probably. So we don't get permits, son." Lena set down her mug. "We just go." Ethan stared at her. "You want to illegally graze cattle on federal land?" "I want to keep them alive. You got a better idea?" "Yeah. Don't commit federal crimes." "It's not a crime if nobody notices." She leaned forward. "Look, the land's up there. The grass is up there. The cattle need grass. We move them up, keep them out of sight, rotate them every few days so we don't leave obvious damage. In a week, either we've saved the ranch or we've lost it. Either way, the grazing thing won't matter." "It matters if we get caught. Who's going to catch us? It's December. Forest Service isn't exactly running heavy patrols.
Miguel was watching them both, something that might have been amusement in his eyes. Your mother would have liked her, he said to Ethan. My mother followed the law. Your mother did what needed doing. Miguel stood, refilled his coffee. And right now, what needs doing is keeping those animals alive. I'm not saying break the law. I'm just saying sometimes the law doesn't care if you're dying. Ethan looked between them. Two people he'd known for less than 24 hours and 30 years respectively, both suggesting he become a criminal. This is insane, he said. Probably, Lena agreed. You in? He should have said no, should have stuck to his principles, accepted failure with dignity, done things the right way even if the right way led straight to bankruptcy. Instead, he said, how do we move 42 cattle 15 miles without anyone noticing? Lena smiled for the first time since she'd arrived. Very carefully. They spent the morning planning. The route would take them through back roads and across two properties Ethan knew were empty this time of year. The old Hutchinson place and a section of land owned by an absentee rancher from California who only showed up in summer. The biggest risk was the highway crossing, a quarter-mile of open road where anyone passing could see them. We do it before dawn, Lena said. 3 a.m., maybe 4. No traffic. You ever moved cattle in the dark? Miguel asked. No, but I've done stupider things in daylight. They'd need horses. Ethan had two, his mother's old mare, Rosie, and a gelding named Duke, who was older than Ethan and meaner than barbed wire. Miguel had his own horse, a steady quarter horse named Cisco. 3 horses, 3 riders, 42 cattle. The math was bad. We'll take it slow, Lena said. Keep them bunched. If we lose a few, we lose a few. We can't afford to lose any, Ethan said. Then we won't. She said it with such certainty that Ethan almost believed her. The lawyer called at 11. Ethan let it go to voicemail, listened to it later. Mark Coughlin's voice was tight with stress. Ethan, we need to talk about this partnership situation. The bank is threatening to sue for fraud. They're saying you deliberately complicated the foreclosure to buy time. Call me back immediately. He didn't call back. What was there to say? Instead, he worked. He and Miguel spent the afternoon checking tack, preparing the horses, trying to anticipate every way this could go wrong. Lena disappeared for a few hours, came back with her car loaded with supplies she claimed she'd found in town. Found? Ethan asked. The hardware store throws out damaged stuff in the dumpster. I got gloves, some rope, a couple of headlamps with dead batteries that just needed charging. She unloaded it all onto the porch. We're not the only ones struggling. People waste good stuff every day. That night they went over the plan again. Leave at 3 a.m. Move the cattle north on the old lumber road, cross the highway before dawn, push them up into the Forest Service land. Find a good valley with south-facing slopes where snow would be minimal and grass might still be accessible. Get the animals settled. Get back before anyone noticed they were gone. And if someone does notice? Ethan asked. We deal with it, Lena said. That's not a plan. It's the only plan we've got. At midnight, Ethan tried to sleep. Couldn't. At 1, he gave up, went to the kitchen, found Lena already there. Can't sleep either? She asked. No. He poured coffee from the pot she'd made. You scared? Terrified. Good. Means you're not crazy. Didn't say I wasn't crazy. Just said I was scared. She wrapped her hands around her mug. Can I ask you something? Yeah. Why are you really fighting this hard? The ranch is buried in debt. The bank's taking it anyway. Why not just walk away? Ethan was quiet for a long time. Outside, wind moved through the bare trees. An owl called somewhere in the darkness. My grandfather came here with nothing, he finally said. Built this place from dirt and determination. My father gave 40 years to it. My mother died trying to save it. He looked at Lena. If I walk away, what was it all for? What did they work for? What did they die for? Maybe they worked for themselves, lived the life they wanted. That doesn't mean you owe them yours. Doesn't it? I don't know. She took a sip of coffee. My parents lost their ranch when I was 16. It destroyed them. My dad drank himself to death within 2 years. My mom remarried, moved to Florida, doesn't talk about Wyoming anymore. It's like those years never happened.
She paused. Sometimes I wonder if holding on too tight is worse than letting go. Is that why you're here? To let go? I'm here because that letter promised me something I needed, a place to belong, a chance to build instead of just survive. She met his eyes. I know it was fake. I know this probably ends badly, but I'm tired of running, tired of starting over. Maybe I'm holding on too tight too. Maybe we both are. At 2:30, they woke Miguel. By 3, they were saddled and mounted, moving the cattle out of the barn into the frozen darkness. The animals were sluggish, confused, but hungry enough to move when prodded. Lena took point on Rosie, Ethan, and Miguel flanking the sides. The lumber road was overgrown, rutted, barely visible in the dark. They moved slowly, the only sounds the creak of leather, the breathing of horses and cattle, the occasional bawl from a cow. Above, stars burned cold and distant. The temperature was dropping, well below 0 now. They'd been moving for an hour when the first cow went down. It was one of the sick ones, the respiratory issues too much for her. She just folded her legs and settled onto the frozen ground like she'd decided death was easier than walking. "Keep the others moving," Lena called. She dismounted, went to the downed cow. "She's done," Miguel said. "Leave her." "No." Lena knelt beside the animal. "Come on, girl, just a little further." "Lena." I said no. She got behind the cow, pushed. The animal didn't move. Ethan rode back, dismounted. Together, they tried to get the cow up. She was dead weight, 800 pounds of giving up. "We don't have time for this," Ethan said. "The others are getting ahead." "Then go catch them. I'll get her up." "You can't." I said I'll get her up. Lena's voice was hard. "Go." Ethan hesitated, then remounted. He and Miguel pushed the main group onward, leaving Lena in the darkness with a dying cow. 10 minutes later, she caught up, alone. "Where is she?" Ethan asked. "Dead." Lena's voice was flat. "Died while I was trying to get her up." They rode in silence after that. The highway appeared at 4:30, a ribbon of empty asphalt cutting through the darkness. They held the cattle in the trees, waiting, watching. No headlights, no movement. "Now," Lena said. They pushed the animals across, 41 head now, their hooves loud on the pavement. Halfway across, headlights appeared in the distance. "Faster!" Ethan hissed. The cattle sensed urgency, started to scatter. Miguel rode hard to the right, turning them back. The headlights got closer. A truck, moving fast. The last cow made it across just as the truck passed. It didn't slow, didn't stop. Just a rancher heading somewhere early, not paying attention to the shadows in his headlights. They were across. The Forest Service land rose ahead, dark slopes covered in pine. They pushed the cattle up a narrow valley, found a south-facing meadow where wind had scoured most of the snow away. Dry grass showed through, not much, but something. "This'll work," Miguel said. They turned the cattle loose, watched them spread out and start grazing. The sun was just touching the eastern horizon, painting everything gold and pink. 8 days left, Lena said quietly. "Yeah." They rode back in daylight, exhausted. The ranch looked different in morning light, smaller, more broken. Ethan unsaddled Duke, brushed him down, tried not to think about the dead cow they'd left on the lumber road. Inside, the house was cold again. The furnace had quit completely overnight. Ethan swore, went to check it, found the pilot light out and the igniter broken. "How much to fix it?" Lena asked. 200, maybe 3. "Which you don't have." "Which I don't have." "Then we burn wood." She was already pulling on her coat again. "You got a chainsaw?" They spent the afternoon cutting deadfall in the woods behind the house, loading the truck bed with wood, stacking it on the porch. It was hard work, the kind that made you forget everything except the next cut, the next piece, the next armload. Ethan's back ached. His hands were numb, but the woodpile grew. At dusk, Clint Hargrove's Mercedes pulled into the driveway. Ethan saw it from the woods, cursed. "Stay here," he told Lena. "Why?" "Because I don't want him knowing you exist." He walked down to meet Hargrove, who was stepping out of the car in a camel hair coat that probably cost more than a month of feed. "Ethan, been trying to reach you. Been busy. I can see that." Hargrove looked at the woodpile,
at Ethan's dirty clothes and exhausted face. Look, I'm not here to bust your balls. I'm here to help. I don't need your help.
The bank's saying you fraudulently created a partnership to delay foreclosure. They're talking about criminal charges. Hargrove's voice was friendly, concerned. I'm offering you a way out. $300,000. We close tomorrow. All this goes away. I didn't create any partnership. Then who did? I don't know. Hargrove studied him. You're lying. Think what you want. Look, whoever this Lena Ward is, she's got you in a bind. The bank's going to come after both of you now. Legal fees, court costs, probably fraud charges. You'll lose the ranch and end up in debt for the next decade. He paused. Unless you sell to me, I'll pay the bank, clear the debt, make this all disappear. You walk away clean. I'm not selling. Then you're a fool. Hargrove's friendliness cracked. In 8 days, you'll have nothing. No ranch, no money, and a criminal record. Is your pride really worth that? It's not about pride. Then what is it about? Ethan didn't answer. Hargrove shook his head, got back in his Mercedes. 8 days, Ethan. Think about it. Think about what you're throwing away. He drove off, expensive tires crunching on frozen gravel. Ethan stood there until the sound faded, then walked back to the woods. Lena was sitting on a stump, the chainsaw across her knees. Let me guess, she said. The vulture wants to buy. 300,000, which is 40,000 short. Yeah. You tell him about me? No. Ethan picked up an armload of wood. But he knows. The bank told him. So now I'm making your life harder. You didn't ask for this. Neither did you. She stood, grabbed wood. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. For what? For showing up, for complicating things, for that cow that died this morning. That wasn't your fault. Wasn't it? If I hadn't tried to save her, if I'd just let her go. She was dying anyway. At least she didn't die alone. He started toward the house. That's something. They ate dinner in silence. Canned soup and stale bread, the wood stove roaring to fight the cold. Miguel had gone home to his trailer on the south section. The house felt empty without him, just Ethan and this stranger who maybe wasn't quite a stranger anymore. Can I ask you something? Lena said. Yeah. That scar on your hand. How'd you get it? Ethan looked down at his right hand, at the long white line across his palm. Barbed wire. I was 17, helping my dad fix fence. Wire snapped, caught me across the hand. Needed 30 stitches. Your dad fix it? No, he drove me to the ER, sat with me while they sewed it up. Didn't say much, just sat there. Ethan smiled at the memory. On the way home, he told me scars were just proof you'd lived, that everyone worth knowing had a few. He sounds like a good man. He was. Worked himself to death trying to keep this place running. The smile faded. Dropped dead of a heart attack in the north pasture. 52 years old. Jesus. Yeah. Ethan stood, collected the dishes. So maybe Hargrove's right. Maybe I am a fool for fighting this hard. Maybe walking away is smarter. But you won't. No, I won't. Lena helped with dishes, then excused herself to bed. Ethan stayed up, feeding the fire, thinking. Tomorrow they'd need to check on the cattle, hope the Forest Service didn't find them. Figure out what came next. 8 days. He had 8 days to save 40 years of history. The odds weren't good. At midnight, he finally went to bed. Sleep came easier this time, exhaustion pulling him down. He dreamed about his mother, about the hospital, about promises he couldn't keep. He woke at dawn to Lena pounding on his door. Ethan, get up. He stumbled out of bed, pulled on pants. What's wrong? The cattle, someone found them. His stomach dropped. Who? I don't know. Miguel just called. There's trucks up there, Forest Service trucks. They're rounding them up. Ethan grabbed his boots, his coat. How many trucks? 3, maybe 4. They ran to Ethan's truck, roared up the lumber road. The sun wasn't up yet, everything still gray and shadowed. As they crested the last hill, Ethan saw them, Forest Service vehicles, men in uniforms, his cattle being loaded into trailers. He parked, got out. A ranger approached, clipboard in hand. You Ethan Voss? Yeah. These your animals? No point lying. Yeah. You know this is federal land? You need permits to graze here? I know. The ranger made a note. The cattle are being impounded. You'll receive notice of fines within 10 days. You can contest them in court or pay them directly. He tore off a sheet, handed it to Ethan. Have a good day. Ethan looked at the paper. The fine was $12,000. He watched them load the last of his cattle, drive away with everything he had left. Lena stood beside him, silent. Well, he finally said, that's that. No, it's not.
Lena, no. She turned to face him. We've got 8 days and you just gave up in 30 seconds. That's not how this works. How what works? They impounded the cattle. I can't pay the fine. I can't pay the debt. It's over. It's over when I say it's over. Her eyes were fierce. You asked me to stay. You shook my hand. You don't get to quit now. What do you want from me? I want you to fight. I want you to stop accepting failure like it's inevitable. She grabbed his shoulders. That cow died last night because she gave up. Don't be that cow. Ethan stared at her, wanted to yell, to push her away, to tell her she didn't understand. But looking at her face, exhausted, angry, desperate, he realized she understood better than anyone. What do we do? He asked quietly. I don't know yet, but we don't give up. She let go of his shoulders. We go back. We think. We figure something out. They drove back in silence. At the ranch, Miguel was waiting on the porch.
I'm sorry, he said. I should have checked on them earlier. Not your fault. Ethan slumped into a porch chair. My fault for thinking we could get away with it. So what now? Miguel asked. Ethan didn't answer. Lena was pacing, thinking. How much money do you have? She asked Miguel. Maybe $300? Ethan? Nothing. I've got 400. She stopped pacing. 700 total. That's seed money. For what? She didn't answer immediately. She was looking at the barn, at something Ethan couldn't see. The barn, she said slowly. The tools in there. Is any of it valuable? It's all junk. Let me see. They walked to the barn together. Inside, decades of accumulated equipment covered every surface. Old tools, broken equipment, rusted metal. Lena moved through it like she was looking for something specific. She stopped at an old anvil in the corner. This, she said, this is it. What? This anvil. It's a Peter Wright, probably 1880s. In good condition, worth $1,500, maybe $2,000. She looked around. What else? Any forge equipment? Hammers, tongs? My grandfather used to do metal work. There's a bunch of his tools in the back room. Show me. In the back room, covered in dust and spider webs, Ethan found his grandfather's forged tools. Hammers of different sizes, tongs, punches, chisels. A portable forge that hadn't been fired in 40 years. Lena's eyes went wide. This is what we needed, she breathed. This is how we save it. I don't understand. She turned to him, and for the first time since she'd arrived, she smiled, really smiled. I'm a blacksmith, Ethan. Or I was before I gave it up. And Christmas is in 8 days. She grabbed his shoulders again. People buy handmade stuff for Christmas, expensive handmade stuff. If we can make enough pieces, sell them at the right place, we can't make $300,000 in blacksmith work. No, but we can make enough to change the equation. Enough to get creative. Her mind was racing now. The cattle are impounded, but not sold yet. The ranch is in foreclosure, but still yours for 8 more days. If we can generate cash, real cash, we can negotiate. Buy time. Make people nervous. That's not a plan. It's better than giving up. She was already moving, pulling the anvil into the light. Help me set this up. We're running out of time. Miguel helped them drag the anvil into position, while Lena examined the portable forge like a surgeon studying outdated equipment. The thing was ancient, cast iron and rust, probably hadn't been fired since Ethan's grandfather died 15 years ago. Will it work? Ethan asked. Only one way to find out. Lena cranked the hand blower. It wheezed, stuck, then started moving. We need coal or charcoal. Propane if you've got it. There's propane tanks for the grill. Get them, all of them. She was already sorting through the tools, separating the salvageable from the scrap. Miguel, can you weld? Basic stuff. Good enough. We'll need stands, display racks, something to transport everything. She stopped, looked at them both. This is going to be brutal. 16-hour days minimum. No guarantee it works. You both understand that? We're here, aren't we? Miguel said. Ethan didn't answer. He was watching Lena move through the barn like she'd found religion in the rust and dust. Whatever she'd given up to come here, whatever she'd been running from, it wasn't blacksmithing. That much was obvious. By noon, they had the forge operational. Lena fired it up, the propane hissing to life, heat shimmering the air. She selected a piece of scrap steel, heated it until it glowed orange, then hammered it on the anvil. The sound rang through the barn, sharp and purposeful. The steel bent under her hammer, straightened, curved. She worked it like she was having a conversation with the metal, asking questions with each strike, listening to the answers and how it moved. 10 minutes later, she had a simple hook, elegant in its simplicity. That's beautiful, Miguel said. That's a prototype. Lena dunked it in the water bucket, steam hissing. We need to make 100 more by Friday. Ethan felt his stomach drop. 100? At least. Hooks, bottle openers, decorative pieces, whatever sells. I'm thinking we target the Christmas market in Billings. It's 50 miles, but it's the biggest in the state. If we can get a booth, booths cost money. Everything costs money. That's the problem with being broke. She was already heating another piece of steel. How much do we have again? 700. Booth rentals probably 200-300. Materials, maybe another 100 if we scavenge smart. Gas to get there and back, $50. That leaves us $250 for food and emergencies. She hammered the steel, her rhythm steady. Tight, but doable. You're insane, Ethan said. Probably. You got a better idea? He didn't. They worked through the afternoon, Lena teaching them the basics. How to read the heat in the metal, when to strike, when to let it rest. Miguel picked it up faster than Ethan, his welder's hands understanding the relationship between heat and steel. Ethan kept overheating his pieces, making them brittle or underheating them and wasting strikes on cold metal. You're thinking too much, Lena said. Feel it. The metal tells you what it needs. The metal's not telling me anything. Then you're not listening. She took his piece, reheated it. See? It's glowing orange, but not white. That's perfect. Now strike here, not there. Follow the curve, don't fight it. Ethan tried again. The metal moved reluctantly under his hammer, but it moved. By his fifth piece, he'd made something that almost looked intentional, a small hook with a twist in the shank. There, Lena said. You're learning. Learning to make mediocre hooks nobody will buy. Everyone starts somewhere. My first hook looked like a question mark had a seizure. She returned to her own work. Keep going. We need quantity before we worry about quality. The sun was setting when Ethan's phone rang. He didn't recognize the number, almost didn't answer, then figured it couldn't make things worse. Yeah? Mr. Voss, this is Sarah Chen from First National Bank. Her voice was professional, cold. I'm calling regarding your account. I know I'm behind. You're not behind, Mr. Voss. You're in default. And we've become aware of some irregularities with your account that we need to discuss. What kind of irregularities? The partnership filing. We have reason to believe it was fraudulent, created to delay foreclosure proceedings. We're prepared to file criminal charges unless you can provide documentation proving otherwise. Ethan looked at Lena, who was watching him while pretending not to. I didn't file anything fraudulent. Then who is Lena Ward? My partner. As of when? 3 weeks ago. That's very convenient timing, Mr. Voss. Right when you were facing foreclosure. Sarah Chen's voice sharpened. I'm going to be direct. We can pursue this legally, which will cost you time and money you don't have, or you can sign voluntary foreclosure papers and walk away cleanly. We're willing to forgive the remaining debt if you surrender the property immediately. Forgive the debt? All of it. You won't owe us anything. You just have to sign the property over by Friday. Ethan's mind raced. Forgive $347,000? That was too generous. Banks didn't forgive debt out of kindness. Why? He asked. Excuse me? Why would you forgive that much money? Sarah Chen was silent for a moment. We're trying to be reasonable, Mr. Voss. Help you avoid criminal prosecution. Or you're trying to help someone else. Understanding clicked into place. Hargrove's putting pressure on you, isn't he? He wants the property cleared fast before someone else can bid. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, you do. He's probably promised you something. A kickback, a favor, something. And you need me gone before it falls apart. Mr. Voss, tell Hargrove if he wants this place, he can pay what it's worth 3 weeks from now in open foreclosure auction, like the law says. He ended the call, his hand shaking. Lena set down her hammer. What was that? The bank offering to forgive the debt if I surrender immediately. That's good, isn't it? It means someone's desperate. Someone powerful enough to make the bank bend rules. He looked at the unfinished hooks, the makeshift forge, the impossible task ahead. Which means we might actually have leverage. Or it means they're about to crush us. That too. Miguel had stopped working. You think Hargrove's paying off the bank? I think Hargrove wants this land bad enough to break the law. And if he's breaking the law, that means it's worth more than he's offering. Ethan picked up his hammer again. Which means we keep working. They worked until midnight, the barn filled with the ring of hammers and the hiss of quenching steel. Lena produced pieces at 3 times the rate of Ethan and Miguel combined. Hooks, bottle openers, simple decorative scrolls. Her movements were economical, precise, the result of years doing this. Where'd you learn? Ethan asked during a water break. My uncle. He ran a blacksmith shop in Casper, did ornamental work for rich people's houses. Gates, railings, that kind of thing. She wiped sweat from her forehead. I worked for him summers during high school, then full-time after my parents lost their ranch. Thought I'd make a career of it. What happened? He died. Heart attack at his anvil. His kids inherited the shop, sold it to pay estate taxes. I tried to keep going on my own, but couldn't get the clients he had. Wrong gender, wrong age, wrong last name. She shrugged. Eventually I gave up, went back to ranch work. Figured I'd lost my chance. Until now. Till... She looked at the pieces they'd made, maybe 30 hooks scattered across the workbench. Probably still lost my chance, but at least I'm trying. They slept for 4 hours, got up at dawn, started again. The routine became mechanical: heat, hammer, quench, repeat. Ethan's shoulders ached, his hands blistered. But the pile of finished pieces grew. On the second day, Miguel welded together a portable display rack from scrap metal. It was ugly but functional, 6 feet tall with multiple shelves. They could hang hundreds of pieces on it. We need variety, Lena said that afternoon. Not just hooks. People want choices. Like what? Fireplace tools, candle holders, wall art, kitchen stuff. She was sketching designs in a notebook between rounds at the forge. Things people actually use. Pretty things people buy because they look good. They expanded the operation. Lena taught Miguel how to make simple tongs and hammers, tools they could sell alongside decorative pieces. Ethan focused on bottle openers after discovering he could make them relatively quickly. Flatten the steel, put a bend in it, add a hook, done. They wouldn't win any awards, but they worked. On the third day, disaster struck. The propane ran out mid-morning. How much do we have left? Lena asked. Ethan checked the other tanks. Maybe enough for another 6 hours. We need 3 more days. I know. Can we buy more? With what money? They stood in the barn, the dead forge cooling, the impossible math crushing them again. Without propane, they couldn't work. Without work, they couldn't make pieces. Without pieces, they had nothing to sell. Coal, Miguel said suddenly. The old mine, up past the Henderson place. That mine's been closed for 30 years, Ethan said. Closed, not empty. There's still coal there. It's just sitting in the ground. Miguel was already grabbing his coat. We go dig some out. We can convert the forge to burn coal. It'll be dirtier, harder to control the heat, but it'll work. That's trespassing. So was the grazing. Miguel looked at him steadily. You want to follow the law or you want to save the ranch? Can't do both anymore. They took the truck and shovels, drove 20 miles to the old Henderson mine. The entrance was collapsed, but there were surface seams, black coal visible in the exposed hillside. They spent 3 hours digging, loading the truck bed with chunks of coal, their hands freezing and their backs screaming. On the drive back, Ethan said, "We're becoming criminals." "We became criminals when we moved those cattle," Miguel replied. "Now we're just committed." They converted the forge that afternoon, Lena adjusting the airflow and fuel bed. The coal burned hotter than propane, harder to control, but it worked. The barn filled with black smoke until they rigged a better chimney from old stovepipe. By the fourth day, they had 200 pieces finished. The quality was inconsistent, some beautiful, some barely passable, but it was product. Lena spent the evening organizing them, grouping by type and price point. Hooks, $5 to $10, bottle openers, $8 to $12, candle holders, $15 to $25, fireplace tools, $30 to $50. She was writing prices on tags. "If we sell everything at the low end, we make maybe $3,000, high end, $6,000. "That's nowhere near $300,000, Ethan said. "I know, but it's somewhere." She looked exhausted, covered in soot, her hands wrapped in bandages where blisters had burst. And somewhere is better than nowhere. That night, Ethan sat on the porch, despite the cold, trying to find cell signal to call the Billings Christmas market organizers. The woman who answered sounded harried. "Booth space? For this weekend?" She laughed. "Honey, we've been sold out since September." "I know it's last minute, but there's a waiting list, 60 vendors deep." "Is there anything? A corner, a shared space, anything?" She sighed. "Look, I feel for you, but Christmas markets are our biggest revenue of the year. We can't just squeeze people in." "Please, this is make or break for me." "It's make or break for everyone." Her voice softened slightly. "Best I can do is put you on the cancellation list. If someone doesn't show Saturday morning, you can have their spot. But I can't promise anything. That's all I'm asking." "What's your name?" "Ethan Voss. Voss Ranch Ironworks." "Cute name. You make it up just now?" "Yeah." "Well, Mr. Voss, I hope you get lucky, but don't count on it." She hung up. Ethan sat there holding his dead phone. A cancellation list. That was their plan now. Hope someone else failed so they could try. Inside, Lena was examining a candle holder she'd just finished, turning it in the lamplight. It was a spiral design, elegant and simple, the kind of thing that looked expensive even if it wasn't. "That's really good," Ethan said. "Thanks." She set it down carefully. "I used to make these for my uncle's clients. Rich people in Jackson Hole, Sun Valley, they'd pay $200 for stuff like this. Will they pay $200 at a Christmas market? Probably not. But they might pay $50, maybe $75 if I'm charming." She looked at him. "How'd the call go?" "Cancellation list. So we're screwed. Probably. Unless we get lucky." "I've never been lucky." She picked up another piece of steel. "But I've gotten good at making my own luck. Come on, we've got 3 more days. Let's make enough inventory that if we do get in, we clean them out." They worked through the night. Ethan lost track of time, everything becoming a blur of heat and hammering and the burn in his muscles. He made hooks until he could do it with his eyes closed, bottle openers until he dreamed about them, simple wall hangers, fire pokers, anything Lena could teach him fast enough to produce in volume. On the 5th day, a truck pulled into the driveway. Ethan looked up from the anvil, expecting Hargrove or the bank or the sheriff with eviction papers. Instead, it was Chuck from the feed store. "Heard you were doing metal work," Chuck said, climbing out of his truck. "Thought I'd see if the rumors were true." Ethan wiped his hands on his jeans. "What rumors?" "That you've gone crazy, set up a forge, working around the clock, planning to save the ranch by selling bottle openers." Chuck's expression was unreadable. "That true?" "More or less." "Can I see?" Ethan led him to the barn. Inside, 300 pieces covered every surface, hooks on the walls, candle holders on the workbench, fireplace tools leaning in the corner. Lena was at the anvil, hammering out another piece, too focused to notice they had company. Chuck picked up a hook, examined it. "This is good work. Lena made that one." "Lena's the partner?" "Yeah." "The one the bank thinks is fake." "She's real." Ethan crossed his arms. "What do you want, Chuck?" "I want to help." Chuck set down the hook. "My daughter's getting married next spring. She's been looking for decorative hooks for her venue, something rustic. How much for a dozen of these? I don't know, $5 each? I'll give you 10, and I'll take 2 dozen. Chuck pulled out his wallet. Cash, right now. That's $240. Ethan stared at the money. Why? Because you fed my family charity hay when my dad was dying and the ranch was failing, 20 years ago, before you were even running this place. Your mother brought us food, your father helped with our cattle, and they never asked for a dime. Chuck held out the money. This town has a short memory, but mine's just fine. $240. Take it. Ethan took the money. His hands were shaking. Thank you, he managed. Thank your mother. She was good people. Chuck headed back to his truck, then stopped. And Ethan? That forge of yours, what you're doing here, it's the kind of crazy that might actually work. Don't quit yet. After he left, Lena turned off the forge. Did that just happen? Yeah. We have customers. 1 customer, 50 hooks. Ethan looked at the cash in his hand. It's not enough. It's more than we had an hour ago. She pulled off her gloves. And if word spreads, if people start talking, it won't matter if we can't get a booth. Then we make sure we get a booth. Her jaw set. We drive to Billings tonight, sleep in the parking lot, be first in line Saturday morning when they open. If someone cancels, we're there. If someone doesn't show, we're there. We don't leave without selling something. That's 50 miles each way. So? So we're exhausted. We've been working for 5 days straight. The truck barely runs. And we're betting everything on a slot that might not exist. You got a better idea? He didn't. They worked through the 6th day in a frenzy. Miguel helped them load the truck, the display rack in the bed, boxes of inventory carefully packed, price tags on everything. They'd made 437 pieces total. If they sold every single one at full price, they'd make maybe $8,000. It wasn't close to $347,000, but it was something. That evening, Ethan called his lawyer. Mark, it's Ethan Voss. Ethan, finally. I've been trying to reach you for a week. The bank's threatening. I know what they're threatening. Here's what I need to know. If I can come up with partial payment, can I force them to accept it? Partial payment? How partial? 10,000, maybe 15. That's not even 5% of what you owe. I know. But can I use it to negotiate? Buy more time? Mark was quiet for a moment. In theory, yes. If you can show good faith and ability to pay the full amount with more time, a court might grant an extension. But Ethan, the bank doesn't want more time. They want the property. Because Hargrove wants the property. Probably, but I can't prove that. What if I could? What if I could prove Hargrove's been manipulating the foreclosure? Then we'd have grounds for a lawsuit. But again, proof is the issue. Do you have any? Working on it? Ethan looked out at the barn, at the glow from the forge where Lena was finishing the last pieces. One more question. That partnership filing, is it actually legal? The paperwork's legitimate. Whether the agreement itself is valid, that's complicated. Why? Just curious. Ethan ended the call. Lena emerged from the barn, covered in soot, carrying the last batch. These are done. I think we're ready. Yeah. You okay? No, but we're doing it anyway. He helped her load the final box. Lena, that partnership agreement, you still have the original letter? In my car. Why? Because if we survive this, the bank's going to come after us for fraud, and I want to be able to prove someone else sent it. You think we can trace it? I think someone went to a lot of trouble to forge my signature and screw up my foreclosure. That's not random. That's planned. He closed the truck gate. And if it's planned, there's a trail. They left at 4 a.m. Friday, the truck groaning under the weight of their inventory. The highway was empty, dark, the kind of dark you only get in rural Montana where streetlights are 50 miles apart. Ethan drove while Lena dozed in the passenger seat, her head against the window. Halfway to Billings, the truck started making a grinding noise. Please no, Ethan muttered. Not now. The noise got louder. He pulled over, killed the engine. Silence, except for the wind and something dripping underneath. What's wrong? Lena was awake now. Don't know. Ethan grabbed the flashlight, got out. Under the truck, transmission fluid pooled on the gravel. The transmission was shot, had been shot for months, and he'd been nursing it along with prayers and luck. The luck had just run out. "How bad?" Lena called. "Bad." She got out, looked at the fluid. "Can we make it to Billings?" "Maybe, if we go slow and don't stop." "Then we go slow." They got back in. Ethan started the engine, put it in gear carefully. The grinding was worse, but it moved. He nursed it back onto the highway, keeping it at 40 miles per hour, every sound from the transmission making his stomach clench. Billings appeared on the horizon just as the sun came up. The Christmas market was downtown, already busy with vendors setting up. Ethan found parking 3 blocks away. The truck wouldn't make it any farther. They sat there, exhausted, looking at the market in the distance. "This is it," Lena said. "Yeah." "You ready?" "No. You?" "Not even a little." She opened her door. "Let's go anyway." They walked toward the market, toward the gamble they'd spent 6 days preparing for, toward the long shot that was their only shot. And Ethan realized that for the first time in 3 years, he wasn't drowning anymore. He was fighting. It might not be enough. Probably wasn't enough. But it was something. It was a start. The market coordinator's name was Patricia, a woman in her 50s with reading glasses hanging on a chain and a clipboard that looked like it held the fate of nations. She stood at the entrance checking vendors in, her expression harried and unforgiving. Ethan approached with Lena half a step behind, both of them carrying boxes from the truck. "Name?" Patricia asked without looking up. "Ethan Voss. Voss Ranch Ironworks. I'm on the cancellation list." Now she looked up. "The guy who called 5 days ago?" "That's me." She flipped through pages on her clipboard. "Yeah, I remember. Desperate voice, bad timing." She scanned the vendor list. "We had 2 cancellations, both filled from the waiting list yesterday. Sorry." Ethan felt his stomach drop. "There's nothing?" "Nothing official, but..." She glanced toward the market. "Booth 37 hasn't shown up yet. Guy makes wooden cutting boards, usually pretty reliable. If he doesn't show by 8, his spot's open. It's 8:07 now." She looked at them. "You want to wait around? See if he's just late? Or you want to pack up and head home?" "We'll wait," Lena said immediately. Patricia shrugged. "Suit yourself. But if he shows, you're out of luck." They moved their truck closer, started unloading while they waited. Other vendors watched curiously, a mismatched pair hauling boxes of metalwork at dawn, clearly not professionals. Ethan could feel their judgment, their skepticism. These people did markets all season, knew what sold, had systems and experience. He and Lena had 6 days of panic and hope. At 8:15, Patricia walked over. "He's not answering his phone. Booth's yours if you want it." "How much?" $300 for the weekend." Ethan pulled out the cash they'd scraped together. "We've got $240. "Booth's $300. Please, we drove 50 miles, our truck's dying, and this is all we have." He held out the money. $240's better than an empty booth." Patricia looked at them for a long moment, then at the boxes of metalwork. "You make all this yourselves?" "Every piece," Lena said. "In 6 days?" "Closer to 5. Patricia took the money. "Booth 37, you've got until Sunday at 4. Don't make me regret this." She walked away, already yelling at another vendor about parking. They hauled everything to booth 37, a 10 by 10 space with a folding table and electrical hookup. Around them, other vendors were setting up elaborate displays, Christmas trees, professional lighting, branded banners. Ethan looked at their scrap metal display rack and felt inadequate. "We look like amateurs," he said. "We are amateurs." Lena was already arranging hooks on the rack. "But our work's good. That matters." "Does it?" "It better, because it's all we've got." They spent an hour setting up. The display rack held the decorative pieces, hooks, candle holders, wall art. The table got the practical items, bottle openers, fire pokers, kitchen tools. Lena made handwritten price tags while Ethan tried to make the booth look intentional instead of desperate. At 9, the market opened. Crowds poured in, families with kids, couples hand in hand, serious shoppers with lists and purpose. They flowed past booth 37 like water around a rock. No one stopped. An hour passed. Ethan watched vendors on either side make sales, handmade soaps, quilted potholders, wooden toys. Their booth remained empty. People glanced, kept walking. A few paused, picked up a hook, set it down, moved on. We priced too high, Ethan said. We priced fairly. Nobody's buying. It's been an hour. It's been an hour and nobody's even asked a question. He ran a hand through his hair. This was stupid. We should have taken Hargrove's offer, walked away clean. You didn't believe that yesterday, and you don't believe it now. Lena straightened a row of candle holders. Give it time. We don't have time. A woman approached, middle-aged, expensive coat. She picked up one of Lena's spiral candle holders, examined it carefully. How much? She asked. 50, Lena said. That's steep for a candle holder. It's hand-forged, one of a kind. The woman set it down. I'll think about it. She walked away. Lena's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. By noon, they'd made one sale, a set of hooks to a man who barely looked at them before handing over $20. Ethan did the math in his head. At this rate, they'd make maybe $200 for the entire weekend. $200 against $347,000 in debt. I'm getting coffee, he said. You want anything? Water if they have it. He walked through the market, past booths making steady sales, past vendors who knew what they were doing. He found a coffee stand, ordered, paid with money they couldn't afford to spend. When he got back, Lena was talking to an older man in a sheepskin coat. The man held one of their fire pokers, testing the weight. Your work? The man asked Lena. Most of it. My partner did the bottle openers and some of the hooks. You forged these yourself? Every piece. The man nodded slowly. I used to do metal work, back when I had working shoulders. This is good technique, old school. He set down the poker, picked up a candle holder. Where'd you learn? My uncle. He had a shop in Casper. Was his name Ward? Lena went still. Marcus Ward. He was my uncle. I knew Marcus, good man, taught me half what I know about ironwork before I got too old and stubborn to learn the rest. The man smiled. He used to make these exact candle holders. I've got 3 of them in my house. He taught me that design when I was 16. Well, you learned it right. The man pulled out his wallet. I'll take 4 of these, and 2 of the fire pokers. How much? Lena calculated quickly. 300. Done. He handed over cash without haggling. You keep doing this work. Your uncle would be proud. After he left, Lena just stood there holding the money. You okay? Ethan asked. Yeah, She looked at the bills in her hand. Nobody said that to me in a long time, that he'd be proud. Well, he would be. You didn't know him. I know you, and I know this work. Anyone who taught you this would be proud. He gestured at the booth. Come on, we've got momentum now. The afternoon picked up. Not a flood, but steady. A young couple bought bottle openers as wedding favors. A contractor bought a dozen heavy-duty hooks. An interior designer spent 20 minutes examining their wall art before buying 5 pieces for a client's mountain house. By 6, when the market closed for the day, they'd made $1,400. Ethan counted it 3 times to make sure it was real. 1,400, he said. That's not bad. That's amazing. Lena collapsed into a folding chair. If we do that tomorrow and Sunday, we might make 4,000 total, maybe 5. He sat down beside her. It's still not enough. No, but it's more than we had. She looked at the remaining inventory, and we've still got half our pieces left. They found a cheap motel 6 blocks from the market, paid $60 for a room with 2 beds and a shower that barely worked. Ethan let Lena shower first while he sat on the bed counting money again, trying to see a path forward. The phone rang. His lawyer. Mark. Ethan, where are you? I've been calling all day. Billings, at a Christmas market. A what? Long story. What's wrong? The banks filed an emergency motion to accelerate the foreclosure. They're claiming you're liquidating assets to avoid payment. They want a court order seizing any proceeds from... He paused. Are you actually selling stuff? Trying to. How much have you made? 1,400 so far. Mark laughed, bitter. Well, that'll really put a dent in 300,000. Ethan, this is serious. If the court grants their motion, they can freeze any money you make and apply it directly to the debt. You won't be able to use it for anything else. Can they do that? They can if they convince a judge you're deliberately trying to hide assets. I'm not hiding anything. I'm trying to make enough money to negotiate. I understand that, but the bank doesn't see it that way. They see someone scrambling, and they want to shut you down before you cause more trouble. Mark's voice softened. Look, I'll file an objection Monday. But Ethan, you need to think seriously about your options. This is getting messy. Everything in my life is messy. This is just more of the same. After he hung up, Lena emerged from the bathroom in borrowed clothes, her hair wet. Bad news? She asked. Bank's trying to freeze any money we make. Can they? Maybe. Probably. He set the phone down. How much cash do we have left? After the motel and gas? Maybe $100. So if they freeze our sales, we can't even get home. Then we make sure they can't freeze it. She sat on the opposite bed. We sell everything tomorrow, take cash only, keep it off any books. By the time the court does anything, we're gone. That's illegal. So is the grazing, so is the coal. We're way past legal, Ethan. She met his eyes. The question is whether you're ready to go all the way. He thought about his mother's promise, about his grandfather's 40 years of work, about everything he'd already compromised to get this far. Yeah, he said. I'm ready. They grabbed cheap food from a gas station, sandwiches and coffee that tasted like chemicals, and ate in the motel room while planning the next day. They needed to move more product, faster. That meant better presentation, better pitch, better everything. I've been watching the other vendors, Lena said. The ones making real money, they're not just selling products, they're selling stories. Where it came from, why it matters, the person behind it. We don't have a story. Yes, we do. Ranch family, 4th generation, keeping traditional crafts alive. People eat that up. That's not our story. That's your uncle's story and my grandfather's story. We're just pretending. We're not pretending. You're fighting for your family's ranch. I'm fighting to keep metalwork alive. That's real. She leaned forward. Tomorrow, when people ask, don't just tell them the price. Tell them why it exists. Make them care. I'm not good at that. Then I'll do it. You just smile and take their money. The next morning, they were at the booth by 7, rearranging everything according to Lena's vision. The best pieces, front and center, the story visible in how things were arranged. She made new signs, hand-forged, Montana-made, traditional techniques. When the crowds arrived at 9, Lena was ready. She didn't wait for people to approach. She engaged them, asked questions, told stories. Ethan watched her work and saw someone he hadn't seen before. Confident, passionate, alive in a way she hadn't been at the ranch. A woman stopped to look at candle holders. Those are beautiful, she said. Thank you. They're based on a design my uncle taught me when I was 16. He was a blacksmith in Wyoming, did ornamental work for 40 years. Lena picked one up, showed the woman the detail. See this twist here? That's the signature of the piece. Everyone's a little different because they're made by hand, not machine. How long does one take? About an hour. Heat the steel, shape it, let it cool. It's the same process blacksmiths have used for centuries. The woman bought 3. By noon, they'd sold more than all of yesterday. The booth was crowded, people waiting to look at pieces, asking questions, pulling out cash. Ethan rang up sales while Lena worked the crowd, and for the first time since this started, he felt something like hope. Then Hargrove showed up. Ethan saw him across the market, that camel hair coat unmistakable. He was with someone, a woman in business attire, carrying a leather portfolio. They were walking through the booths, looking at vendors, looking for someone. We've got trouble, Ethan said quietly. Lena followed his gaze. Who's that? Hargrove. And I don't know who she is, but it's not good. They watched Hargrove and the woman work their way closer. When they reached booth 37, Hargrove smiled his practiced smile. Ethan, didn't expect to find you here. He looked at the metalwork, the crowd, the cash box. Quite the operation you've got going. What do you want, Clint? Just browsing, supporting local artisans. He picked up a bottle opener, examined it. These are cute, very rustic. How much are you making, if you don't mind me asking? I do mind. Come on, we're all friends here. Ballpark figure. Hargrove set down the opener. Because my friend here, she's from the bank's legal department, and she's very interested in where all this money is going.
The woman stepped forward. Mr. Voss, I'm Jennifer Hastings, counsel for First National Bank. We have a court order requiring you to disclose all sales proceeds from this event. I'll need to see your records and collect any cash on hand. Ethan's blood went cold. You can't do that. Actually, I can. The order was granted this morning. She held out a document. All proceeds must be turned over to the bank immediately and applied to your outstanding debt. Lena moved between them and the cash box. We haven't made anything yet. Really? Because I've been watching you for the past hour, and I've seen at least 20 transactions. Jennifer's smile was thin. Let's not make this difficult. Hand over the cash and your sales records, and we can avoid involving local police. Ethan looked at the cash box. Probably $3,000 in there, maybe more. Everything they'd worked for. Everything they needed. No, he said. Excuse me? I said no. You want this money, get a real court order with a real judge's signature, not some emergency motion you push through at 8 a.m. on a Saturday. Jennifer's expression hardened. This is a legitimate order. Then you won't mind if my lawyer reviews it Monday. Ethan crossed his arms. Until then, this is my property and you're trespassing. I'm not trespassing. This is a public market. And this is my booth. Leave. Hargrove stepped closer, his friendly mask slipping. You're making this worse for yourself, Ethan. Just cooperate. Like you cooperated when you bribed the bank to fast-track my foreclosure? Like you cooperated when you forged a partnership letter to screw up the timeline? Ethan was done being careful. Yeah, I know about that, and I'm guessing that letter's going to be real interesting to investigators. Hargrove went very still. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you don't. You just happen to benefit from a partnership agreement that mysteriously appeared right when you needed the foreclosure delayed. Total coincidence. You're paranoid. I'm desperate. There's a difference. Ethan looked at Jennifer. And I'm guessing your boss doesn't know you're here doing Hargrove's dirty work. Because if this is a legitimate legal action, why isn't the county sheriff serving the order instead of a bank lawyer at a Christmas market? Jennifer's jaw tightened. You'll regret this. I regret lots of things. This won't crack the top 10. He gestured toward the exit. Now get out of my booth before I start telling everyone here how banks and developers team up to steal family ranches. Hargrove and Jennifer left, but not before Hargrove leaned close and said, You've got 2 days left, Ethan. Then it's mine whether you like it or not. After they were gone, Lena exhaled slowly. That was stupid. Probably. You just made powerful enemies. I already had them. Now they just know I know. He looked at the cash box. We need to hide this money. If they come back with real police, on it. Lena was already emptying the cash box, shoving bills into her pockets, her backpack, anywhere they couldn't be easily confiscated. We'll keep just enough visible to look legitimate. They worked quickly, paranoid now. Every security guard that walked by made Ethan's heart race. Every official-looking person drew his attention, but no one came to shut them down. The afternoon was their best yet. Word had spread through the market about their confrontation with Hargrove. Vendors gossiped, and apparently standing up to developers made good press. People came by specifically to support them, bought pieces they didn't need, paid extra because they liked the story. By the time the market closed Saturday night, they'd made $6,000. Ethan and Lena sat in the truck in the dark parking lot, counting money for the third time. $6,000, Lena said. Add yesterday, that's $7,400 total. With one more day. If we do half that tomorrow, we'll have $11,000. She looked at him. That's not $347,000, but it's something. It's not enough to save the ranch. No, but maybe it's enough to change the game. She pulled out her phone. What if we don't try to save the ranch? What if we try to make it unsellable? What do you mean? Hargrove wants the land for development, right? Subdivide it. Build luxury houses. That only works if the land's clean. No legal disputes, no complications. She was thinking out loud now. But what if we create complications? File lawsuits, claim environmental concerns, tie it up in legal knots, make it so messy that Hargrove walks away. That takes time and lawyers and money we don't have. We have $11,000, maybe more after tomorrow. That buys us some legal ammunition.
Ethan leaned back against the seat, exhausted. You think it would work? I think it's better than giving up. She looked at the market, at the booth they'd be back at tomorrow. We came this far on hope and desperation. Might as well see how much further we can push it. They slept in the truck that night, saving the motel money. It was cramped and cold, but neither of them complained. They'd slept in worse conditions during the week setting up the forge. Sunday morning arrived with snow. Not much, just flurries, but enough to make the market feel festive. The crowds were bigger than Saturday, families making their final Christmas shopping runs. Ethan and Lena were ready. They'd rearranged the booth again, putting their absolute best pieces front and center. Lena had stayed up late making one final piece, an elaborate wall hanging, twisted steel formed into a winter tree, delicate and strong at the same time. How much for that? Ethan asked. I don't know, 200? Make it 3. If we're swinging for the fences, swing hard. The day started strong and stayed strong. People bought gifts, decorations, pieces for themselves. The spiral candle holders sold out by noon. The fire pokers went by 2. Ethan kept having to reorganize the display as gaps appeared. At 3, a man in an expensive suit stopped at the booth. He looked at Lena's winter tree wall hanging for a long time. This is exceptional, he said. Thank you, Lena replied. You make it? Finished it last night. I run a gallery in Bozeman. We specialize in Montana artists, Western themes. I'd like to carry your work. He handed her a business card. Come by next week. Let's talk about a show. After he left, Lena just stared at the card. A gallery show, she said quietly. You deserve it. This could be, if he's serious, then you'll do the show and sell your work and build something real. Ethan smiled. That's what you came here for, isn't it? She looked at him, something complicated in her expression. I came here because I needed a place to land. I stayed because... She stopped. Because you gave me a reason to fight. You gave me one too. They sold the winter tree wall hanging at $330 for $400 to a woman who fell in love with it immediately. At 4, Patricia announced the market was closing. Ethan and Lena counted their final sales, $4,200 for Sunday. Combined with the previous days, they had $11,600 total. That's it, Lena said. That's everything we've got. They loaded the truck with their unsold inventory, maybe 50 pieces that hadn't found homes. The truck protested starting, the transmission grinding ominously, but it turned over. The drive back to the ranch took 3 hours. The truck died twice, required coaxing both times. But they made it. They pulled into the driveway at 9 p.m. Sunday night, 48 hours before the final foreclosure deadline. Miguel was waiting on the porch. How'd it go? He asked. We made $11,600, Ethan said. Miguel whistled. That's good. That's not enough. No, but it's more than I expected. He looked at them both, covered in soot and exhaustion. You two look like hell. We feel like hell, Lena said, but we're not done yet. They unloaded the truck, carried the money inside. Ethan spread it on the kitchen table. Cash. All of it. Untraceable. $11,600 against $347,000 in debt. The math still didn't work. But sitting there, looking at money they'd earned through sweat and skill and refusing to quit, Ethan felt something shift. They hadn't saved the ranch, but they'd proven they could fight, and sometimes that was enough to change everything. Miguel made coffee while they sat around the kitchen table staring at the money. $11,600 looked like a fortune spread across the worn wood. It also looked like nothing compared to what they owed. So what's the plan? Miguel asked, setting down mugs. I don't know yet. Ethan rubbed his eyes. Call the lawyer tomorrow, see if we can negotiate something. Use this as good faith. Buy more time. Hargrove's not going to let that happen. I know. Lena was quiet, her finger tracing circles on the table. What if we don't negotiate with the bank? What do you mean? I mean the bank's just the tool. Hargrove's the problem. He's been manipulating this whole thing. The foreclosure timeline, the emergency court orders, probably that partnership letter too. She looked up. What if we go after him directly? How? Prove he's been committing fraud. Get him investigated. Once there's a criminal investigation, the whole foreclosure becomes evidence. The bank won't touch it until it's resolved. Ethan wanted to believe it could work. We don't have proof. We have the letter, the forged partnership agreement. She pulled it from her backpack, set it on the table. Someone forged your signature. If we can prove it wasn't you and we can prove Hargrove benefited, that's circumstantial at best. Then we find more evidence. She looked at Miguel. You've lived here 40 years. You know everyone. Has Hargrove done this before? Other ranches, other families? Miguel thought about it. The Morrison place almost went under 2 years ago. Hargrove was circling then too. They managed to pull through last minute. How? Sold some land to a conservation group, but there were rumors Hargrove tried to block the sale, claimed he had a prior agreement with the family. Did he? The Morrisons said no, said he forged paperwork. Miguel paused. But they couldn't prove it and didn't want to fight, so they dropped it.
Lena leaned forwards. If we can find the Morrisons, get them to talk, show a pattern of behavior, that takes time we don't have, Ethan said. We've got 48 hours. Then we work fast. She stood up. Miguel, can you reach out to the Morrisons tomorrow? Anyone else Hargrove's gone after? We need statements, documentation, anything. I can try. Good. Ethan, we need to look at that letter more carefully, find something that proves it's fake. Ethan picked up the letter, studied it in the lamplight. The signature looked right. Too right, maybe. His actual signature varied slightly. Sometimes the E was bigger, sometimes the V looped differently. This one was perfect, like someone had traced his signature from a document. It's too clean, he said slowly. My signature's messy. This looks like a copy. So they scanned your signature from something else and printed it on new letterhead? Maybe. But how do we prove that? Lena grabbed her laptop.
Let me see what I can find about document forensics. There's got to be a way to detect forgeries. They worked into the early morning. Lena researched while Ethan went through old files, looking for examples of his real signature. Miguel made phone calls, left voicemails for the Morrisons and 3 other families who'd had run-ins with Hargrove over the years. At 2 a.m., Lena found something. Here, she said, turning the laptop toward Ethan. Signature analysis. If we can get the original letter examined by an expert, they can tell if it's printed versus actually signed. Ink patterns, pressure points, that kind of thing. Where do we find an expert? Billings has a forensic document examiner. I'm looking at her website now. She does rush jobs for legal cases. How much? $1,500 for a standard analysis. More if it's urgent. Ethan looked at the money on the table. We can afford it. Barely. Then we call her first thing tomorrow. Lena closed the laptop. We're building a case. It's not much, but it's something. They slept for 3 hours, got up at dawn Monday. 40 hours left until foreclosure. Ethan called the document examiner as soon as her office opened. This is extremely short notice, she said. Her name was Dr. Patricia Reeves, and she sounded skeptical. Standard analysis takes a week minimum. I'll pay double. Triple if you can have results by tomorrow morning. What's the situation? Possible forgery related to property fraud. I need proof before a foreclosure deadline. Dr. Reeves was quiet for a moment. Email me photos of the document. Front and back, high resolution. If it looks promising, bring me the original by noon today. I'll see what I can do. Ethan took detailed photos, sent them. 30 minutes later, she called back. This is interesting. The signature has characteristics consistent with digital reproduction rather than natural signing. I'll need the original to confirm, but I think we have something here. I'll be there in 2 hours. He grabbed the letter, grabbed Lena. We're going to Billings. What about Miguel? He's making calls, gathering statements. We do this. He paused at the door. If this works, if we can prove Hargrove committed fraud, it's still a long shot. Everything we've done is a long shot. This one's just got better odds. The truck made the trip to Billings through sheer willpower and prayer. The transmission was grinding constantly now, the whole vehicle shaking above 40 miles per hour. They made it to Dr. Reeves' office at 11:30. She was younger than Ethan expected, maybe 40, with reading glasses and ink-stained fingers. She took the letter carefully, examined it under a specialized light. Definitely printed, she said after 5 minutes. See here? No ink penetration into the paper fibers. This was laser printed, not signed with a pen. Can you testify to that in court? I can provide a written analysis with supporting evidence,
Whether a court accepts it depends on jurisdiction and timing. She looked at Ethan over her glasses. When's your deadline? Tomorrow at noon. That's tight. I can have preliminary findings by tonight, full report by tomorrow morning. But Mr. Voss, proving the signature is fake doesn't prove who faked it. I understand, but it proves I didn't create this partnership to delay foreclosure. Fair enough. She began photographing the letter from multiple angles. I'll call you by 8 tonight. They drove back to the ranch. Miguel was waiting with news. I got 3 families willing to talk, he said. The Morrisons, the Chen family, and a couple named Davidson who lost their place 2 years ago. They all have stories about Hargrove using questionable tactics. Will they go on record? The Morrisons will. They're still angry about what happened. The others are scared, worried about retaliation. We need something concrete, not just stories. Ethan paced the kitchen. What about documentation, contracts, letters, anything with Hargrove's fingerprints on it? Mrs. Morrison said she has emails, Hargrove pressuring them to sell, making threats about their credit, that kind of thing. Can she send them to us? Already did. Check your email. Ethan opened his laptop, found 15 emails from Janet Morrison. He started reading. The first few were professional, Hargrove expressing interest in buying their ranch, offering fair market value. But as the messages progressed, the tone changed. Veiled threats about foreclosure, implications that he had connections at the bank, suggestions that fighting him would only make things worse. This is good, Lena said, reading over his shoulder. This shows pattern and intent. It's still not proof he forged my letter. No, but combined with this forensic analysis, it builds a narrative. She pointed at one email. Look at this one. He's telling the Morrisons he's already spoken to their bank about accelerating their foreclosure. That's illegal interference. Ethan kept reading. In the final emails sent after the Morrisons had saved their ranch, Hargrove's mask slipped completely. Accusations of bad faith negotiation. Threats of lawsuits. And one line that made Ethan's blood run cold. I don't forget people who cross me. Neither does First National Bank. That's a direct admission, Ethan said. He's admitting he has influence with the bank. It's close. A good lawyer could argue it's just bluster. Or a good lawyer could use it to open an investigation. Ethan pulled out his phone, called his lawyer. Mark Coughlin answered on the first ring. Ethan, I was about to call you. The bank's legal team is pushing for immediate seizure. They want sheriff's deputies at your property tomorrow at noon to enforce the foreclosure. I have evidence Hargrove's been manipulating the process. What kind of evidence? Ethan explained. The forged letter, the forensic analysis, the emails from the Morrisons. Mark listened without interrupting. That's good, he said when Ethan finished. Maybe good enough to file an emergency injunction. But Ethan, you're talking about accusing a wealthy developer and a major bank of conspiracy and fraud. That's serious. You better be right. I'm right. Can you prove it by tomorrow morning? I'll have forensic proof the signature was forged. I'll have emails showing Hargrove's pattern of intimidation. I'll have witness statements from multiple families. That might be enough for an injunction, but judges don't like last-minute theatrics. Mark paused. I need everything you've got by 7 a.m. tomorrow. I'll file the emergency motion at 8. If the judge grants a hearing, we go in front of her at 10:30. And if she doesn't grant a hearing, then the foreclosure happens at noon, and all your evidence becomes moot. Mark's voice was gentle. Ethan, this is a Hail Mary. You understand that, right? I understand. Good. Send me everything tonight. I'll start drafting the motion. They spent the afternoon organizing evidence. Lena created a timeline when the forged letter appeared, when the partnership was filed, when the bank suddenly became aggressive about the foreclosure. Miguel worked on getting statements notarized from the Morrison family. Ethan wrote out his own affidavit, swearing he never created the partnership agreement. At 7 p.m., Dr. Reeves called. I have preliminary findings. The signature is definitely digitally reproduced, most likely scanned from an existing document and printed onto the letter. I can have the full report on your lawyer's desk by 7 a.m. tomorrow. That's perfect. Thank you. Mr. Voss, I hope this helps you. But be prepared. Document forensics is compelling evidence, but it's not magic. You'll still need to prove who did the forging. Working on that too.
By midnight, they had everything compiled. Ethan emailed it all to Mark, the forensic analysis, the Morrison emails, the witness statements, his affidavit. Then he sat back and waited. Outside, snow had started falling again. Not heavy, just steady, covering the ranch in white. Lena stood at the window watching it. "You think we did enough?" she asked. "I don't know." "What happens if we lose?" "We lose everything. The ranch, the cattle, what's left of them anyway. The buildings, the land, all of it." He joined her at the window. "And you lose your 30% of nothing." "I've had 30% of nothing before. I'll survive." "Will you stay?" She looked at him. "Stay where? If the ranch is gone, I mean in Montana. You've got that gallery show in Bozeman. You could build something there." "Maybe." She turned back to the window. "But that wasn't why I came here." "Why did you come?" "I told you. The letter promised me something I needed, a place to belong." "And did you find it?" She was quiet for a long time. "Yeah. I think I did. Just not the way I expected." They stood there in the dark, watching snow fall on land that might not be theirs tomorrow. Ethan thought about his mother, his father, his grandfather, all the people who'd worked this land before him, all the promises made and broken. "I'm sorry I failed them," he said quietly. "You haven't failed yet." "Pretty close." "Close doesn't count." She touched his arm. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be hard." Ethan tried to sleep but couldn't. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the ranch subdivided, luxury houses where cattle used to graze, his grandfather's barn bulldozed to make room for a golf course. At 4 a.m., he gave up, made coffee, sat at the kitchen table. Lena found him there at 5. "Couldn't sleep either?" she asked. "No." She poured herself coffee, sat across from him. "Want to know something funny? When I got that letter 3 weeks ago, I almost didn't come. I thought it was too good to be true, probably a scam." "It was a scam." "Yeah, but coming here anyway, that was the best decision I've made in years." She smiled slightly. "Even if we lose everything tomorrow, I don't regret it." "Why not?" "Because I remembered who I used to be. Before I gave up on metalwork, before I accepted that surviving was enough. You gave me that back." She met his eyes. "So, thank you." "I didn't give you anything. You did all the work." "You gave me a reason to try. That's more than you know." At 6:30, Mark called. "I filed the emergency motion. The judge's clerk just called. We have a hearing at 10:30. Ethan's heart jumped. "She's giving us a hearing?" "She's giving us 30 minutes to make our case. The bank will get 30 minutes to respond. Then she'll rule." Mark paused. "Ethan, I need you there. You and Lena both. The judge is going to want to hear directly from you." "We'll be there." "Wear something decent if you can. Look respectable. This is going to come down to credibility." They drove to Billings in the dying truck, both of them wearing the best clothes they could find. Ethan in a button-down shirt that was wrinkled but clean, Lena in a blouse she'd bought at a thrift store 2 years ago. They looked like exactly what they were. Broke ranchers desperately trying to save something they couldn't afford to lose. The courthouse was old, stone and marble, the kind of building designed to make you feel small. They met Mark in the lobby at 10. He had a briefcase full of documents and the tired eyes of someone who'd been up all night. "The bank brought their A-team," he said, nodding toward 3 lawyers in expensive suits conferring near the courtroom door. "That's Howard Chen, their lead litigator. He's good, aggressive." "What do we do?" "Tell the truth, answer questions directly, don't elaborate unless asked." Mark looked at them both. "And whatever you do, don't lose your temper. Chen's going to try to rattle you." The courtroom was smaller than Ethan expected. The judge, Honorable Margaret Keene according to the nameplate, was already seated, reviewing documents. She was maybe 60, gray hair pulled back, reading glasses perched on her nose. "All rise," the bailiff called, though everyone was already standing. Judge Keene looked up. "Let's get started. This is an emergency motion for injunction filed by Ethan Voss and Lena Ward against First National Bank. Mr. Coughlin, you have 30 minutes. Mark stood, walked to the lectern. His voice was steady despite his exhaustion. "Your Honor, my clients are victims of an elaborate fraud designed to manipulate foreclosure proceedings, for the benefit of a third-party developer. We have forensic evidence showing Mr. Voss's signature was forged on a partnership agreement. We have documentation showing a pattern of intimidation and illegal interference by Clint Hargrove, who stands to profit from this foreclosure. And we have witness testimony from multiple families who've been targeted by the same tactics. He walked through the evidence methodically. The forensic analysis showing the digital reproduction. The emails from Hargrove to the Morrisons demonstrating pattern. The timeline showing how the forged partnership conveniently delayed foreclosure just long enough to create legal chaos. Judge Keene listened without expression, making notes. When Mark finished, she turned to the bank's lawyers. "Mr. Chen, your response?" Howard Chen stood. He was smooth, confident, the kind of lawyer who charged $1,000 an hour. "Your Honor, this is a desperate attempt by borrowers in default to avoid legitimate debt obligations. Mr. Voss has owed First National Bank over $300,000 for months. He's made no meaningful payments. He's violated grazing regulations, possibly engaged in tax evasion through unreported cash sales, and created a fraudulent partnership to delay foreclosure." "The partnership is what's fraudulent," Mark interjected. "Let him finish," Judge Keene said. Chen continued. "As for these allegations against Mr. Hargrove, they're unsubstantiated conspiracy theories. Mr. Hargrove is a legitimate businessman who's made legitimate offers to purchase distressed properties. The fact that Mr. Voss doesn't like those offers doesn't make them criminal." "What about the forged signature?" Judge Keene asked. "The forensic analysis is preliminary, not conclusive. And even if the signature is forged, there's no evidence linking it to Mr. Hargrove or the bank. Mr. Voss could have created this himself to manufacture grounds for an injunction." "That's ridiculous," Ethan said before he could stop himself. Judge Keene looked at him. "Mr. Voss, you'll have a chance to speak. Mr. Chen, continue." Chen laid out the bank's position efficiently. Voss Ranch was in default. The foreclosure was legitimate. The emergency motion was a stalling tactic. They requested immediate denial and enforcement of the original foreclosure order. When he finished, Judge Keene removed her glasses. "Mr. Voss, Miss Ward, approach the bench." They stood together, walked forward. Up close, Judge Keene looked tired, like she'd heard 1,000 cases just like this. "Mr. Voss, did you create this partnership agreement?" she asked. "No, Your Honor." "Do you know who did?" "I believe it was Clint Hargrove, but I can't prove it definitively." "Ms. Ward, you filed the partnership papers with the county clerk. Why?" "Because I received a letter with Mr. Voss's signature asking me to. I had no reason to believe it wasn't legitimate." "Where were you living when you received this letter?" "Casper, Wyoming." "How did you and Mr. Voss know each other prior to this?" "We didn't." Judge Keene leaned back. "So a complete stranger sends you a partnership offer, and you drive halfway across the country, sell all your possessions, and file legal paperwork without verifying any of it." "I verified what I could. I called the number on the letterhead, researched the property. But you never spoke to Mr. Voss directly before arriving." "No, Your Honor." The judge made a note. "That strikes me as either incredibly trusting or incredibly naive." "I was desperate," Lena said quietly. "I needed it to be real, so I didn't look too carefully at whether it was." Something in Judge Keene's expression shifted slightly. "Mr. Voss, you made $11,000 at a Christmas market this weekend." "Yes, Your Honor." "The bank is claiming you're hiding assets to avoid debt payment. Are you?" "No, we were trying to raise money to negotiate a settlement." $11,000 against $347,000 is not a settlement, Mr. Voss." "I know, but it was all we could do." He felt Lena's hand brush his, a brief touch of support. "Your Honor, I'm not trying to avoid my debt. I'm trying to stop a fraudulent foreclosure engineered by someone who's done this before to other families. The evidence of that pattern is thin. It's what we could gather in 48 hours. Judge Keene was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Here's my problem. I have preliminary forensic evidence suggesting forgery. I have circumstantial evidence of improper conduct by a third party, but I also have a borrower in severe default who's had months to address this debt and hasn't. The law doesn't care about your reasons for defaulting, Mr. Voss. It only cares about the debt itself." "I understand, Your Honor." Do you? Because what you're asking me to do is stop a legitimate foreclosure based on speculation about fraud I can't conclusively prove. That's a high bar. Ethan felt everything slipping away. He'd known this was a long shot, but hearing the judge say it out loud made it real. Your Honor, Lena said suddenly. May I say something? Judge Keene looked surprised. Go ahead. This partnership agreement, fake or real, gave me 30% ownership of Voss Ranch. That means I own 30% of the debt, too, right? Legally, yes. Then I'd like to make a payment. She pulled an envelope from her pocket. $11,600 cash toward the partnership's portion of the debt. The courtroom went silent. Howard Chen stood up. Your Honor, this is theater. It's legal payment against a legal debt. Lena cut him off. Unless you're arguing the partnership isn't valid, because if it's not valid, then the whole foreclosure timeline is wrong, and this case needs to be reviewed anyway. Judge Keene almost smiled. Ms. Ward, that's clever. Mr. Chen. Chen looked trapped. The bank's position is that the partnership is fraudulent, so it's invalid. Yes. Then the foreclosure proceedings that assumed its validity are also invalid, and we need to restart the timeline from when the partnership was filed, which gives Mr. Voss several more weeks. Judge Keene looked at the bank's lawyers. You can't have it both ways, gentlemen. Chen and his team huddled, whispering urgently. Finally, Chen said, The bank requests a continuance to review our position. Denied. We're resolving this today. Judge Keene turned back to Ethan and Lena. Here's what's going to happen. I'm granting a temporary injunction on the foreclosure pending full investigation of the forgery allegations. The county prosecutor's office will review the evidence and determine if criminal charges are warranted against anyone involved. Your Honor, Chen started, I'm not finished. Mr. Voss, you're not off the hook. You still owe this debt, and you still need to address it. I'm giving you 90 days to either reach a settlement with the bank or secure refinancing. If you can't do either, the foreclosure proceeds. 90 days? 90 days. Use them wisely. She looked at the bank's lawyers. And gentlemen, if I find out your client has been engaging in the kind of conduct alleged here, we're going to have a very different conversation about who owes whom. Understood? Yes, Your Honor. Good. Motion granted. We're adjourned. She stood, left the courtroom. Ethan stood there in shock. They'd won. Not completely, not permanently, but they'd won. Lena grabbed his arm. We did it. You did it. That thing with the payment, learned it from watching you fight. She smiled. Come on. We've got 90 days to figure out the rest. Outside the courthouse, Mark was grinning. That was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. The way you trapped them with their own argument. Will the prosecutor really investigate? Ethan asked. Oh yeah. Judge Keene doesn't make empty threats. If there's evidence of fraud, Hargrove's going to have a very bad year. Mark packed his briefcase. But Ethan, 90 days goes fast. You need a real plan to address that debt. I know. The $11,000 helps, but I'll figure something out. They drove back to the ranch in the failing truck, neither of them speaking much. The relief was overwhelming, leaving no room for words. They'd bought time. Not much, but some. Miguel was waiting on the porch with coffee. Well, we got 90 days, Ethan said. Hot damn, Miguel grinned. I knew you two would pull it off. We didn't pull anything off. We just delayed the inevitable. Delayed is better than done. He handed them coffee. And I got some news while you were gone. That gallery owner from Bozeman, he called. Wants to set up Lena's show for February. Says he's got 3 clients already interested based on photos from the Christmas market. Lena looked stunned. He called here? Left a message. Said he'll pay commission on sales and cover all setup costs. Sounded pretty excited. That's amazing, Ethan said. Yeah. Lena sat down heavily on the porch steps. That's actually happening. Over the next week, things started to shift. The county prosecutor opened an investigation into Hargrove. News spread through the ranching community about the court hearing. Chuck from the feed store called to say Ethan's credit was good again. He'd heard about the fight and respected it. 2 other vendors from the Christmas market reached out asking if Voss Ranch Ironworks did custom orders. The money from those orders wasn't much, but it was steady. Lena worked the forge while Ethan handled the ranch work. Miguel helped with both. They developed a rhythm, a system that worked. In January, the county released the impounded cattle. The fine was reduced to $4,000 after prosecutors determined the grazing violation was driven by economic desperation, not malicious intent. Ethan paid it with money from metalwork sales and got his herd back. In February, Lena had her gallery show in Bozeman. She sold 17 pieces in the opening weekend for a total of $12,000. The gallery owner wanted to represent her permanently. "You should do it," Ethan told her afterward. "I'm thinking about it." "You don't sound excited." "I am. She looked around the ranch. "I'm finally building something here, something real. Walking away from that feels wrong." "You're not walking away. You're expanding." "Maybe." In March, the prosecutor filed charges against Hargrove: fraud, forgery, conspiracy to manipulate foreclosure proceedings. Hargrove's lawyers fought it, but the evidence was strong. The bank, desperate to avoid being implicated, offered Ethan a settlement: restructure the debt, extend the timeline, reduce the principal by $20,000 in exchange for dropping any claims against them. Mark advised taking it. "It's not perfect," he said, "but it keeps the ranch in your hands and gives you breathing room." Ethan took the deal. By April, spring was coming to Montana. The snow melted, revealing brown grass that would turn green soon. The cattle, 41 head now, after losing one to pneumonia over the winter, were getting healthier. The fence line was repaired. The barn roof was fixed. The house foundation still had a crack, but it wasn't getting worse. Lena's forge operation had grown. She had regular customers now, standing orders for local businesses and designers. The money wasn't making them rich, but it was keeping them afloat. One evening in late April, they sat on the porch watching the sunset. The land stretched out before them, still broken in places, still struggling, but alive. "I've been thinking," Lena said. "About what?" "About that partnership agreement, the fake one that started all this." "What about it?" "It gave me 30% of the ranch. Obviously, it's not legally valid anymore, but—" She paused. "What if we made it real?" Ethan looked at her. "You want to actually be partners?" "I've been living here 4 months. Working this land, building the forge business, helping keep this place running. I'm invested." She met his eyes. "And I think you could use someone who's invested in more than just not losing." "What do you mean?" "I mean, you've spent 3 years trying to not fail. That's exhausting. What if instead we tried to actually succeed, build something bigger than just surviving?" Ethan thought about it. About the fights they'd had, the risks they'd taken, the way they'd learned to work together through sheer necessity, about how the ranch felt different now, less like a dying dream and more like something with potential. 30%? He asked. "Unless you think I'm worth more." She smiled slightly. "I think you're worth more, but 30% keeps you hungry." "Deal." They shook hands the same way they had 4 months ago when neither of them believed it would work. This time felt different. This time it was real. "So what now?" Lena asked. "Now we figure out how to make this place actually profitable instead of just barely surviving." "You have ideas?" "A few. The metalwork's good, but seasonal. We need year-round income. I'm thinking we do agritourism, ranch stays, blacksmithing workshops, that kind of thing. Use what we've built to attract people who want to learn." That could work. She was already planning. He could see it in her eyes. "We'd need to fix up the guest cabin, get permits, build a proper teaching forge. All stuff we can do ourselves if we work at it." "Yeah." She looked out at the land. "It's going to be hard." "Everything worth doing is." They sat in comfortable silence while the sun set, painting the sky orange and pink. Somewhere in the distance, cattle called to each other. The forge in the barn was cold now, waiting for tomorrow's work. The house behind them still had problems, but it was warmer than it used to be. "You know what's funny?" Ethan said. "What?" "I spent 3 years trying to save this place exactly how it was, preserve my grandfather's ranch, keep my mother's dream alive, maintain everything perfectly." He shook his head. "But that's not what saved it. What saved it was letting it become something different." "You think they'd be okay with that? Your family?" I think they'd be okay with it still existing. The rest is details. Lena stood, stretched.
I'm going to check the cattle before it gets dark. I'll come with you. They walked across the property together as evening settled over the ranch. The land was still scarred, still recovering from years of struggle, but there were green shoots appearing through the brown grass. The cattle were filling out. The building stood solid against the sky. It wasn't perfect. It probably never would be. But it was theirs, earned through desperation and determination and refusing to quit when quitting was the smart choice. The black Baldy, Bessie, the pregnant one, was grazing peacefully in the south pasture. She'd survived the winter, gotten healthier on good hay they could finally afford. In a few weeks she'd calve, adding to the herd they were slowly rebuilding. She looks good, Lena said. Yeah, she does.
Think we'll make it? Ethan looked at the ranch, at the woman who'd shown up 4 months ago as a stranger and become a partner in every sense that mattered, at the future that was uncertain but possible. Yeah, he said. I think we will. They walked back to the house as stars appeared overhead. Tomorrow they'd wake up early, start the forge, work the land, figure out the next problem that needed solving. It wouldn't be easy. Nothing about ranching ever was. But they'd stopped drowning. They were swimming now, fighting current, making progress. And sometimes that was enough. Sometimes that was everything. Inside the house, the wood stove was burning warm. The kitchen table still had plans scattered across it, designs for new metalwork, sketches of the teaching forge they wanted to build, financial projections that were optimistic but not impossible. The crack in the foundation was still there, but they'd scheduled someone to look at it next month. Ethan made coffee while Lena pulled out her notebook, started sketching a new candle holder design. Miguel would be here at dawn to help with fence repair. The gallery in Bozeman wanted 10 new pieces by June. The ranch needed 100 different things fixed, improved, rebuilt. But tonight, for the first time in 3 years, Ethan wasn't thinking about what he'd lost. He was thinking about what they'd built and what they'd build next, the end.